Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are right now. Welcome to office hours and week 3 of the build sprint. And we're really happy to have a group of founders here this morning to talk with Jared about their companies, get some of his great advice. And as always, we will have time for Q&A after Jared talks to these founders. So if you have questions, please drop them in the Q&A box and upvote the ones that you would like to see answered toward the end of the call. And I'm seeing that number of attendees go up and up and up, but I will get us started and I will hand it over to Jared.
Awesome. Thank you, Joan, and thank you everybody for joining us today. Well, we've got 3 really cool companies and I'm really excited to get to talk to them. I was checking out their websites earlier. So let's jump right into it. And first up, Vizonare. Want to come off mute and tell us?
Yeah, sure. Hey,
doing?
Jared. I'm very excited to do those office hours. I've always watched them carefully, even during the previous build sprint. And my name is Przemek. I know it's hard to pronounce. It's Przemek. And
okay.
I'm the founder of Vizonare. I previously worked at a YC company and in different roles as an engineer, then in enterprise sales and as a product owner. Pardon?
Which one?
Estimote.
Estimote. I know Estimote.
Yes. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So I've worked there for over 4 years. Nice. So I obviously worked in different roles, and as part of the business, we were installing Bluetooth sensors for our customers, especially we were doing it ourselves for the enterprise customers. And I was also involved in this process. And then during the pandemic, we had to do it remotely, all those installations. So we had to exchange multiple emails, videos, screenshots, floor plans, a lot of things, because there were no tools to coordinate this process remotely. And that's how the idea for Vizonare was born, based on this problem, because we want to allow businesses to manage on-site projects like this remotely. And this is not only about hardware installations, also planning events, construction, interior design, and it works in remote locations. And we do it at Vizonare, we do it with a 3-step process, so that you first scan the environment with a mobile app and the LiDAR scanner that's there. Then you upload it to the cloud. The experts can walk through it in a web dashboard, plan changes, and then they send it back so that people in the field can look it up in augmented reality and see those changes planned on top of their existing space. And we're at the stage where we have the MVP almost ready. We have 1 paid pilot ongoing already with an enterprise customer, and we have 2 more in negotiation. So far, we've bootstrapped it, and we haven't incorporated yet on purpose. Yes?
I'm like, hang on one sec. Just because it's such a visual product, I'm going to take a second and share my screen for the audience so everyone can actually see what we're talking about, because I think
way easier. Yes.
Yeah, and you've got a really good video on your homepage. So everyone,
Thank you.
This is how it actually works. Do you want to kind of?
Yeah, so this is where it starts. Yeah.
All right.
There's scanning first, then uploading, and then an expert can walk through the location, measure distances, and plan any installation, leave notes or instructions. They send it back, and then the customer can go back and see it exactly in the right spot, what to do.
And you're able to build this really cool 3D model of a space.
Yeah, this is only possible, from for some time now, because some things had to happen on the technology, from the technology perspective. So there is this LiDAR scanner, which is affordable now, and mobile devices. There are the chips that can handle it and all the processing. computer vision algorithms right now entered real time for this 3D scene reconstruction that's going on. So that's only been possible lately.
It's super cool. Is this actually working?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, it's working. You know, there are challenges, of course, with how good is the scan, for example, but that's just a matter of
basically works.
That's the meat,
at least for some places. Awesome.
Exactly. Exactly. And so we've bootstrapped so far. I'm the only person full time, and I'm a technical solo founder. But I've worked with a few team members already part time, and we've managed to build this MVP. Actually, by the end of the build sprint, we have it ready. It's already working. And right now, my goal, because I want to, follow YC advice, is to first try to find the product market fit and try to also find the best industry and use case to focus on with the product. So I'm trying to get more pilot projects going with different industries, different use cases. And I've relied on my network initially. I've closed one, two more in negotiation, but I feel like I need another source of those leads for the pilot projects. And that's the biggest problem right now for me, how to do it. Because when I do outbound and I reach out for LinkedIn, for example, or emails, this is really, I really have low conversion of that. People treat it as spam. So, only the warm introductions worked really well. And I know how to do the discovery part already with the customer, but I just don't get the calls. And I was wondering if maybe you have some advice regarding that. What could be the right channels to invest into?
Yeah, great topic. How do we get more good leads to B2B customers? What kind of customer buys this? Is this a contractor at a construction company? Explain who the customer is.
Yeah, so through the process of reaching out, I've narrowed down some of the industries. So for example, in the events industry, there are event management companies which work with contractors. And those event management companies, they do a lot of planning, scoping of the projects. They need to approve changes, produce visuals, plan with the partners and contractors. And actually these companies, I know that they are my customers, but also their contractors have to use this for them to produce those visuals for them as well. So this is usually about those partners and contractors, but there is also a company that's putting it all together. So that's how it looks like in events. On the other hand, when there are companies that do interior design, there is usually an agency that can use this product. And in construction, I don't know yet, because I imagine, I've talked to some people, but I don't have any proven pain points in construction yet.
Got it. And how many emails and how many LinkedIn messages have you been sending?
Yeah, so I think it would be between 50 and 100 on LinkedIn, and
total.
Total, and like 20 emails, because most of it was actually me reaching out to the customers I know. So those warm introductions and convincing my network to reach out to their network, so it was more, I haven't done a campaign yet, like an open campaign, large scale campaign. Okay.
Well, I think that would be definitely something that's worth trying for you. This seems like the kind of product that is actually amenable to that. And probably like the most important piece of advice I can give you, like the high order bit, is you just need to do a lot more. Like you need to add like 2 zeros to the ends of those numbers to know if it's even working at all.
Okay. I see. Okay. And what do you think about producing content to get describing a potential use case in an industry, like in events, for this product, and then trying to attract those companies to reach out to me.
How would you do that?
Yeah, so I thought about describing one use case for a specific industry every week on LinkedIn.
Okay. Yeah.
Posting that, trying to promote it as much as possible. I've seen some leads coming from even my comments. So I thought about trying this as a lead generation, you know?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn can work well for that flavor of inbound marketing to B2B customers.
Okay, thank you.
So I'd say like the high order bit is you just need to do a lot more outreach, like hundreds or thousands of emails and messages, because you're right, it is going to have a very low response rate. And you can counteract that to a certain extent by experimenting with a lot of different message templates and a lot of different approaches. Oh, do I want to talk to the construction person at the event agency? Do I want to talk to the person who runs the event agency? And you know, which use case do I lead with in a message? There's like a lot of different variables that you can play with in this equation, but the most important variable is just more, lots more.
Okay, I see.
And then there's some good suggestions in the comments. So I want to sort of like open it up to the audience to see what other advice people would have for Shamik here about how to drum up more good B2B leads.
So there's so many comments here. Okay, let me see. Did you use a framework for 3D modeling? Yes, there are open source frameworks for that. Computer vision frameworks. Messaging is critical on LinkedIn to be able to connect, initiate a conversation. I can help with this. Okay. Do I have a copy of this chat at the end, or I should manually copy this?
Yeah, I can send it over.
Okay, thank you. That'd be great. And the messaging is critical. Okay, might be worth highlighting more use cases on the landing page. Yes, I thought about this. I'll definitely highlight use cases on the landing page. I suggest real estate developers will be interested. Yeah, this can go 3D sightseeing. Yes, I thought about showing it. Also a use case for applying a BIM model in construction, but there are actually some companies that are already trying to do this. Okay, and then it remains to be seen whether this technique will work. I think it will.
Oh, looks like somebody's already offering an introduction to a property manager. Does anybody else happen to know somebody in the event or construction or remodeling business?
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm really open to that. So
thank you, Zach.
And please, if you use the contact form on my website, it will go to me. So please contact me there as well. I really appreciate that. How long does it take to launch the MVP? So actually, you know, I have a technical background. I used to be an iOS engineer before. I do it as a hobby still, and I love it. So for me, it was a matter of, I had a network of engineers. So for me, it was just finding the right person to help me and doing a hackathon for 2 weeks to get the mobile app running, the first version. And I'm working with a part-time employee on the web dashboard. Yeah, messages, physical outreach. Wow, there's so much. It's amazing. And I have also another question, Jared. So do you think I have time to also ask one more? Or?
Absolutely, go for it.
Okay, so I was regarding fundraising. I feel it because the reason I haven't reached out to more as well is that I don't have time physically to do that. You know, I have to juggle so many things, and I was thinking about the hiring because I know how to. If I had someone to help me consistently on a full-time basis with the iOS part, for example, I know that I could be investing much more time into the customers, for example, and fundraising. But then on the other hand, I'm bootstrapping, so every hire is a significant cost to me at this point, and I could also spend time on fundraising instead. So actually, I'm not sure if I should prioritize, the future speed, or right now getting these 3 pilots ongoing, so I have the feeling of the product market fit, what it could be, and then invest in it. What do you think? I know it's a hard one.
No, it's a great question. So I think I wrote a little bit more in the form where you requested these office hours, and I think you said that you had a few angel investors. Are those angel investors who want to invest, or just angel investors you can maybe get an introduction to?
Yeah, so there are actually, I have 3 that they want to invest.
Okay. Have you talked to them about how the investment would work, like how much they would invest?
Not yet, because I had some also VCs reach out, but I know that this process takes time. I think it takes less time with angel investors, right? Because you're talking to individuals. But I've tried to really focus on building and selling at the beginning. So I'm wondering if I should invest my time in that right now, because I could do a small round with angels.
So it takes time to convince investors to invest. It generally doesn't take much time when you have people who want to invest. Just to mechanically process the investment does not take much time. So if you have 3 people who have already told you that they want to invest, it probably won't take you that much time to actually just get investment from them, because you basically just have to agree on exactly how the terms are going to work. And that actually probably shouldn't take that much time if they've already agreed to invest, or you could try it. And if it turns out that it's going to be hard because, they want very different terms from what you want, then you could just sort of abort.
I see. And do you think that's if I raise a round like this right now, and I'm actually I will apply to Y Combinator also this September, do you think that's a blocker in any way?
No.
Because
no,
yeah,
of course not.
Okay.
No, I mean, having said that, unless they're very rich angel investors, it probably won't be enough money for you to really hire. I guess you could maybe hire one contractor or something to help out part-time. In general, it's pretty hard to get a lot of help from other people in this stage of the business. You're better off doing sort of substantially all of the work yourself. Could it make sense for you to raise, $100,000 from some angel investors and maybe hire a part-time contractor who could help with something possibly more I don't know. Just yeah, that could make sense, but it's unlikely to move the needle in a big way.
Yeah, also I do the projects. I want the customers to be engaged, treated seriously. I want to be sure that there is pain there and that they can pay for it. So I do paid pilots only. Okay. So I have some funding from there, right? But I know I could move much faster because I know what I want to do. Yeah. Okay, I see. And I was also thinking about this. I had this question, I'll just share with the audience. Sure. I had this question about hiring. When's the right time to hire? And if those should be full-time or contractor members or contractors. But actually, there is a great video already with Jared and technical founders session in the startup library, and there is an answer to that at the end of the session. So I'm just sharing with people because I've just checked, just in case, and this one is answered. So yeah, thank you, Jared. So do we have the time to also answer some more of the questions from the audience, or do you think we'll wrap up?
We should probably wrap up, but okay. Yeah, just a last thought for you on how to get more B2B leads for this. The thing that you're building is a very visual product. It really, I think, grabs people when they see it. And it reminds me a lot of PlanGrid. Do you know the company PlanGrid? Okay.
Yes, of
Which
course.
is a YC company that makes software for construction teams, and it's also a very visual product. It's for folks who don't know, PlanGrid is an iPad app. Well, originally it was an iPad app where you could put blueprints on your iPad. And back when PlanGrid launched, basically all blueprints in everywhere in the world were printed out on physical paper. And PlanGrid was the first company really to successfully make a mobile app where you could have a digital blueprint as you were building a building. And so I wonder if you can take a bit of a card from the way that the PlanGrid founders got early adoption, because it's pretty like similar customer segment, also very visual product that's sort of like, you have to see it to really understand it. And a couple of thoughts for you. One is there are a lot of conferences and sort of places where people who work in the construction industry hang out. And I know because Tracy would actually go to these conferences, and probably a lot of them are virtual now because of COVID, but I would assume that they're still happening in some form. And this is a great product for that. Like Tracy would walk around conferences with her iPad out, showing people PlanGrid, like kind of like putting it in their face and being like, check out my iPad app. And like,
and they
that
need
works.
to look.
Yeah. I mean, it works in person. And there's kind of like a Zoom equivalent as well for conferences. So that I think is compelling. I think this is a visual enough product that you could probably launch it on Product Hunt if you sort of improve the landing page a bit and wrote like a nice Product Hunt post that sort of explained it in consumer friendly language.
Yeah, I thought about it actually, but I know they're more consumer oriented there, right? But
there are for sure, but everyone's a consumer. Like,
yes, that's true. It's a matter of framing it as well, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was actually thinking about this Dubai Expo because one of the customers I'm negotiating with actually is an event management company that organizes the pavilions there. So this could be an example of a conference, let's say, that I could actually go to and meet them in person. Yeah, that's a great advice. Thank you.
Cool. All right, Sean, it was great to meet you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Great meeting you. And thank you to the audience. Also, I'll browse through all those comments. Okay, bye.
Awesome. Bye. All right, Blockpliance.
Hey, Jared, thanks for doing this. I'll get straight to it. My name is Guillermo. I'm building Blockpliance, which is basically blockchain compliance. What we do is that we build software to help financial institutions analyze the source of funds and all anti-money laundering compliance policies when dealing with crypto. My background, it's in wealth management. I was a private banker for the last 6 years for a South Florida community bank. So being in South Florida, we specialized mainly in the Latin community overall that wanted to bank in the United States. And due to the hardships that most of those currencies and countries are having back in their local geographical space, there's a lot of movement of money using crypto to get to the United States. And banks are not liking that very much just because they don't understand it and they don't understand what regulations could eventually come up to them. So the main problem is not the fact that someone sells either Bitcoin or Ethereum. The main problem is that banks don't have a way right now to really track how this person came to be of those coins or those tokens. And the banks that know that compliance software exists, just like Chainalysis or Ellipsis or some others that do this, they're a little bit expensive and they're hard to use. So I mixed both my expertise as just a professional side as a private banker and the investor side. I was in Bitcoin very early on, so I mixed both things and quit my job and decided to build this. That's awesome. That's really what it came down to. And I wanted your help with just a few things, please.
Yeah.
Number one, it's the fact that I'm building something that really can't be patented and can't be the intellectual property. I don't know exactly how much it can be protected. I have asked questions about it to legal teams, and the answer that I keep getting is basically there is no real protection for intellectual property, because 90% of the base that I'm using, it's either the blockchain, which is public, or algorithms that are already in GitHub or community source or open source software. I'm just being the architect to pull those things together. So my concern is that as I start, gaining customers and building this, someone in chain analysis is going to dedicate a team of 5 engineers and build the same functionality within 10 days. So what's your thoughts on that, and how can I sort of navigate that space?
Yeah, look, if you're building a software company, this is always going to be true. There is no real intellectual property anywhere for software companies like this. You can't lock out competition by getting patents on your software. It doesn't really work. Other people can copy your software. You can also copy their software. That's just how the market works. It's possible that Chainalysis will see what you're doing and create a competitor, but there's no alternative. You just have to try it and hope for the best. And the vast majority of the time, founders who are worried about this find out that they were unnecessarily concerned. And the reason is Chainalysis is busy with other stuff. And you might think that this is obviously a good idea, but from their standpoint, it may not be obviously a good idea. And just because they see you doing it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to change their product roadmap and go and copy it. Typically, you don't get copied until you're already successful. And the reason is, until you're already successful, nobody believes it's actually a good idea. And so typically founders who are worried that people are going to copy it, their concern is that people will see this and think it is obviously a good idea and want to copy it. And instead, usually the problem is the opposite, is that people will see the idea and nobody thinks it's a good idea. And therefore nobody wants to copy it or use it. And that's actually by far your biggest risk, which is why the standard YC advice, which I think is the right advice, is to just launch it. And yeah, there's a 1 in a million chance or something that Chainalysis will see your product really early on and just jump right on it. This is the best idea ever. We need to redirect our whole product roadmap into copying this. It's very rare that happens.
Okay, I understand. Thanks for bringing that up. That really is one of my worries, because the people I'm working on right now, some of them already use Chainalysis, and one of them use Elixir. And we've been comparing what I want to do. I can't access those platforms myself, just because you have to be a business and you have to qualify and be screened through them. So I'm basically using some of my customers who I'm speaking to, this target audience, to get some of the information that I would like to get from the platform, meaning be able to compare it and navigate it and all this stuff. So we see the added value in the way I want to do things, but I'm concerned that eventually, it would trigger also the other way around. I am speaking to, I'm leveraging my network and speaking to a decent amount of people who are in the compliance or banking industries and getting their feedback to build my scalable MVP. Right now, the way I'm working and I am assessing product market fit, it's by doing something that it's ridiculous and doesn't make any sense because it won't scale, which is, I spoke to a few banks. I brought this up as a problem for them in terms of providing source of funds. And whenever they have a compliance question regarding blockchain, they're sending me an email and I'm running a manual analysis of the wallet and the transaction that concern and sending them a report back. I wonder, in your opinion, how much does it make sense for me to keep doing this for a month or 2 months? Because it takes me about 1 to 3 hours to do the whole report, and depending on the complexity of the transaction, it takes a bunch of time. And eventually that is time that I'm not dedicating to the other things I should be. So where is the balance? Sorry?
Are they paying for the reports?
At this moment, no. The idea is to start next month paying a small fee for a monthly fee, regardless of how many reports I actually have to produce. I really don't know how to price this. That's really what it comes down to. So I'm trying to try different things because, of course, banks want to pay the least amount of money for it. But depending on the size of the bank, that might be $10,000 a month, or it might be $1,000 a month. So I really don't know exactly how to price it. I just know for a fact that I do not want to do the standard model that other companies are doing, which is very, very high startup costs for the institution and then a monthly fee that it's minimal. I would like to keep it more balanced towards having something minimal that can grow over time.
Yeah.
So residual income.
Well, it seems to me there are like upsides and downsides to doing the reports yourself. Like the downsides are obvious, which is like, oh, it takes time to put together reports, and it's possible that it doesn't make sense to continue to do that because like it takes too much time. But I just want to point out, like, less obviously, there is a real upside to doing the reports yourself, which is that when you do the reports yourself, you're actually talking to a person at the bank, you're sending them the report, and they have an easy opportunity and avenue to give you feedback. And you can ask them a question like, is this report useful? Did you decide to deny the transaction or allow the transaction? Those are very useful data points to have early on. And if you automate it too early, you lose them. So
yeah,
that's a consideration to keep in mind.
You're on point on that, because the way, like I had, when I created the idea, I had a dashboard on my mind. And if you see how much it has changed just by doing these interactions, and
Exactly.
People saying, you know, like the first email, they're like, you know, it's great, I have the information, but it's just too much. So let's simplify here, let's do that. And it's, you know, it is looking more amicable to someone that has never actually interacted with crypto before. And I'm happy to have done that process. And I know you guys are very big into doing this, but how long would be a reasonable amount of time before I have to start worrying about the things that will take time, which is, you know, the fundraising and actually programming this, which I can't do myself. So I have to search someone that is technical enough to help me do that, etc.
Well, a good time to automate something that you've been doing manually is basically when you feel like you've gotten the right product. So like, it's faster to iterate on reports like this before you automate them at the time that you're still doing them manually, because after you automate it, if you want to change it, now you need to like rewrite the code. So it's generally fastest to iterate on it the way that you're doing it until it's good, until you're consistently sending the reports to the banks and they're like, thanks so much for the report. This gave us exactly the info that we wanted. This was great. Like after you have that, that's a good time to automate it.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And the last thing I wanted to hear your opinion on. One of these banks liked the idea. They understand what it is, and they basically told me whenever we feel like actually taking money from investors, they would like to participate. The thing is that I would like to shy away from taking like bank institution money, because it's, in my opinion and in my view, I don't think that is the type of investor that I want early on. I rather get someone that's way more technical and more crypto than having someone that it's on the bank side, just because they see the value in it. So
is it the bank investing as an institution, or somebody who works at the bank investing as an
no,
individual?
the institution.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it depends, but in general, banks are somewhat challenging as investors. So I think your instinct is right there.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't want to tell them straight no, because they are helping me build my MVP and they're one of the potential customers. So I don't like, how would you approach managing that? Basically saying, I appreciate this, but I'd rather have you just as a customer at that moment, because I think.
Yeah, I'd put it in the future. I'd be like, yeah, that might make sense in the future, but we aren't like fundraising right now. We don't need any capital. We really just want to like work with you to help solve this problem for you.
Okay, awesome. Well, I guess that's it. Thank you very much for your time and for the input, and I really appreciate you guys doing this. I love the program. Thank you.
Absolutely. It was great to meet you, Guillermo.
Likewise.
All right, Sprout Creativity.
Hi, Jared. It's
Hello.
great to be able to directly connect. So I'll come right to the point. So the problem that we at Sprout are passionate about solving, it's not like the technical problem that we've heard so far. It's a problem of actually building creativity as an adult, despite a busy schedule. So our research that we did with young adults in the ages of 25 plus has shown that users are motivated to pursue creative projects, but they find it difficult to be consistent given limited time. So a solution that we are proposing is a project-led digital platform for art and craft and other projects that users can get access to 15 to 60-minute step-by-step projects, practice exercises, and progress tracking tools to start and build creativity over time. So our primary focus, yes.
Let's try that description again. It's a library of 100 or so videos that teach you how to do something creative, like crochet or clay jewelry or paper craft, and you pay a small subscription fee per month to get access to this library of videos. Do you have that right?
Yes, much better than what I said.
Cool.
Yeah. So our primary focus, as you also noted, is basically to promote active user experience by actually creating or doing versus more passive consumption of content. So this becomes more of a behavioral challenge where we want users to complete a cycle, which would be from discover, practice, create, they share something, and then they repeat this process. So we've received good feedback in the prototype testing, and we've launched our website for beta users right now. And parallelly, we are also evaluating user acquisition channels, which we can prioritize. So content and digital marketing, obviously, it takes time to showcase results and engagement. So there are 3 channels that we were trying to really look at. The first being organizing online, offline events, where we actually get to directly engage with users and get insights on the quality of the projects and the library of projects that we are building. Second could be through a sales channel initiative of community managers or the network of the artists themselves who we are onboarding. Or the third could also be like partnerships, whether it's with corporates or with influencers. So my first question is on this, in terms of, given that we're at such an early stage of just building the first set of library, any models on user acquisition that you would recommend for us?
Is your product live yet?
So we are live only in terms of acquisition. We are still in developing stage, so another 2 months.
Okay, well, it's a little bit putting the cart before the horse. Like we can't get users until we have a product. So like the first, okay. So you're asking in 2 months when we think the product is going to be ready, how should we get our first users?
Right. And also within the 2 months, I think there are things that we can do to really build up more engagement about the project, in terms of actually doing an event where people actually come and experience the entire guided project, so where they're able to recreate it. So really to build up a little bit more excitement and awareness about the program and about the platform before we actually launch as well.
Okay, and each project it's a video. Is that the it's a video with I mean, the obvious channel for you guys is just YouTube. Is you make shorter versions of the videos, maybe trailers of videos, or you give away some of the videos for free and you put them on YouTube, and there's an incredible amount of search volume on YouTube already for things like this, and you use that to drive people to your site and you try to upsell them on the subscription. That's like the most obvious channel, I would say, for you guys. Also sort of organic inbound search, where if you just put up one page for each of your videos, for every, like one web page on your site for each topic that you cover, you will get search traffic from Google eventually for, crochet video and things like that, which is a powerful channel for companies like yours.
Right. Thank you. And then connected to, sorry, please go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, so connected to that as well, in terms of, so this is the shorter term aspect of it, but in the long run, the goal would be to have user referrals, which we think could be also the key driver, because that would be dependent on how users actually find the experience and how they really build on the engagement. So how consistent they're actually able to grow up. So the second question that I have is really in the early stages, how to really balance between this challenge of acquisition and engagement. Should we really focus on 100 users initially, look at what they're experiencing over a period of 6-7 months, or should we really be trying to, focus more on acquisition in the early stages?
It's hard to say because you don't know which one is going to be harder. We kind of just need to launch and then find out. But, like the most important thing is to iterate towards making a product that at least some people want. And typically in order to do that, you have to focus to a certain extent on both acquisition and engagement, because it's not that easy to acquire users. And so to even acquire any users, you're going to have to do some work. But if you're acquiring users and they're not engaged with the product, you want to solve that problem before you go and acquire more.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's see if there are other suggestions. Folks, chime in the comments if you have ideas for how Sprout Creativity can get more people who are interested in crafts to come to the website and check out their product. Okay, Catherine suggests Instagram influencers. Great idea. Instagram is perfect for this
Absolutely.
kind of content. Yeah.
I think YouTube,
Pinterest.
Instagram, and Pinterest are the 3 top platforms for us.
Pinterest also huge. Yep, absolutely. TikTok for short videos about creativity. That makes sense as well. Yep.
Right. And also the corporate partnerships, I think, in terms of employee wellness.
And there's somebody in the audience who has an artist network in India with 800 artists. Look at that. That's amazing.
So that's great. I think a lot of comments and I'd love to get those.
Oh, somebody with an artist network in the Philippines. Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Pragya. It was really nice to meet you.
Thanks, Jared. Thanks.
All right. We've got time for one more. SnapSuite. Dwayne, are you there?
Unmuting myself right now, putting down my camera.
Okay.
There we go. How are you?
Hello, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I've been listening to your talk and you've been giving very great advice.
Well, thank you.
So a little bit about SnapSuite. So basically we're a company that's focused on the contractor industry. So think your HVAC, plumbers, electrical type of guys. And what we do is try to help them with scheduling and dispatching. So in other words, if your light bulb was broken and you called an electrician, they would take your information, put it in our software, and then they would schedule out or send out a dispatch person at some point to kind of get things going. So we're just trying to make that process a little bit more efficient. There's tons of solutions like this on the market. Where we really excel or try to separate ourselves is what we're seeing is that there's sort of a mid-market kind of gap. So there's solutions that if you have like say 10 employees and less, there's solutions on that side. And if there's like, if you have like say 100, 200 employees plus, there's solutions that are really good. That's sort of the middle market where you have like say 30, 40, 50 employees. There's sort of a gap there where those companies have used sort of like, they've had a business for 20, 30 years. They've built up some sort of process already, and the solutions that exist on the market are not necessarily helping them to kind of continue that process, if that makes any sense. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to meet them where they are with their legacy platform and kind of bring them into sort of the modern way of doing things, but not necessarily remove the old, like sort of give them a gradual path to improvement. So with that, the company in itself, where we are right now is we've last year kind of scaled up. We got to 14K in MRR, and then we quickly sort of went down the other side because the platform just couldn't keep up with it, with sort of like the growth and the speed. So we took another year, tried to revamp, set things up again, and now we're trying to recreate that success again. So my first question to you basically is, when do you know when to start scaling? And I know this is obviously different for every company and every single thing, but I'm just curious on sort of like your experience in terms of like what you've seen as like when a company should start focusing on like scaling up their team and trying to focus on growth.
Sure. So who's on the team now?
So as of today, we got 4 developers. And myself, I'm sort of jumping between sales and development. So because I'm both technical and I'm also doing sales as well. I just brought in an operations person to kind of help with kind of onboarding, because my problem right now is customers are coming and I just can't deal with the front end facing of the customer and the back end. So I'm trying to focus myself more on sales at this particular point.
Got it. And how much revenue are you making now?
So right now we're just at 2,500 per month MRR.
2,500.
So we basically just went all the way back down.
And how are you funding the team? Did you raise some money from investors?
I have not. No raised money. We've been bootstrapping the whole time. So we've just been selling and kind of just growing like that organically. As just of recent, we just got 100K, but this is from a sort of a bank loan, and that's just been kind of keeping us afloat to kind of scale things up.
Well, there's a bunch of considerations in when to scale the team up. The most basic one is you can't scale your team up before you have enough money to do so. Regardless of anything else, it's just like a basic constraint. So are we even at the point where we have enough money that we can afford to scale the team up? And
for 3 to 6 months,
MRR,
maybe for about 5 months. And then if we don't move fast enough, then yeah, we're going to be back to,
yeah, then I don't think I would do it, honestly. That's like that like I think to decide to scale up your team, you have to at least check that box, which is like you can afford to do it in like a responsible way. And if we haven't checked that box yet, no other consideration really matters.
Got it. Okay.
Even if you have enough money to scale up the team, it doesn't necessarily always make sense to do it. It's really common for founders in the YC program to raise $500,000 or $1 million from investors and decide not to scale up the team just yet because they don't have product market fit for their product. They're still working on like iterating there. The founders have all the skills that they need. They can both build the product and sell it. So they don't need anybody in order to make progress. And they think that they'll actually make faster progress just like sticking with a small team. That might not apply to you, like because you've actually got a fair amount of traction for this, but like a sort of the order of operations that I would use to evaluate it is first, we have to actually have enough money that we can scale it up like responsibly, because it's important to like preserve your runway, because it may not take off in the next 6 months. It may take more time, and you really want to preserve your runway so you don't blow it all on on employees in a short time period.
Right.
And then like after we have enough money that we can responsibly like scale up our team, then we want to ask ourselves, will more people really help us go faster? And founders tend to assume that like by definition it will, and it's not true. More people typically help you go faster only after your product is live, after you have users, and after you're pretty sure that you're building the right product and you have a lot of clarity on what needs to be built in order to improve growth. Until then, when you're you might be in that phase, but for other folks on the call, if you're still in the phase where you're not exactly sure what to build, you're kind of trying a bunch of different features and a bunch of different customer profiles and trying to figure out like what fits and what the people want. Often adding more employees actually makes you go slower, because that iteration process is a very creative process, and you need to be able to change direction very quickly. And when you add more employees to the mix, it's harder to make those quick direction changes.
Yeah, that is my fear. It's sort of like the only problem is we are getting a lot of sort of demand, I guess, from customers for certain sort of like features just to add on to what we already have. And so I'm, like personally, I can't build it all myself and still kind of focus on sales. So that's kind of the sort of the catch-22 that I'm dealing with. But that's definitely some good insight. Another question, just quickly, is, so this question about company versus user. So every single thing on Y Combinator and pretty much every accelerator that we've looked at, they talk about how many users do you have? I kind of measure things based on the company. So we only have like 3 companies under our belt, each of them paying us about $750 roughly per month. And the users, maybe if I were to guess, is about 40 users or so in total. But we focus on the companies because we don't actually charge a per user rate. Like we're just charging based on the size of company and sort of like their needs kind of deal, and a SaaS-based model. So I guess the question is, does it really matter? All right, because our user count really, users in the sense is like paying customers for me. So in this particular case, it's very low number. Like, does that really matter from I don't know, should we go with 40 number versus 4? basically, I guess would be the question.
No, I think you should measure the number that's relevant to your business, which I think in your case is 4, because you don't charge per seat. To a certain extent, it doesn't really matter how many people at that company use the product. What really matters is how many companies are using it and paying you. So I think your instinct is correct to measure the thing that matters. I wouldn't worry too much about the exact way that the question is phrased on accelerator applications.
Perfect.
Like, I forget if the YC application says users or users/customers.
Yeah,
or both, but
everybody says users, and we're like, well, it's a little thing, but that's been, just talking to investors, it just felt like we were kind of underselling ourselves, and that's been sort of a thing. But I appreciate your feedback on that. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Those are my 2 main questions. I'm excited. I've been learning quite a bit, just kind of staying in the background and listening. So I appreciate the feedback and the just effort that you've been putting into giving like quality guidance.
Awesome. Well, Dwayne, congratulations on getting to 4 paying customers and a couple of $1,000s a month in revenue. That's awesome. That's really good progress.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We've been working really hard.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Congratulations. And it was great to meet you.
No, it's great to meet you too. Thank you. Have a good one.
All right. Joan, shall we do some Q&A?
Yes, I think
Thank you,
so.
everybody, for the good questions in the Q&A here.
Yes. So the top one right now, and a reminder, you can keep upvoting. But Patrick wants to know what data from Startup School, weekly updates that they're submitting, the group sessions that they participate in the build sprint. To what extent do we look at that when we're evaluating YC applications?
Yeah, a little bit. And really the thing that we're looking for is whether people are making progress, whether you're like setting goals and working on them every week, whether you're making a consistent effort, whether you're learning from your customers, whether your updates are changing from week to week, or if you're sort of stuck on the same issue every week. Those are some of the things that we look at.
And then along the same lines, what is the most important part of a successful YC application?
So if you haven't seen it yet, my colleague Dalton Caldwell wrote a great video called How to Apply and Succeed at Y Combinator, which is part of the Startup School curriculum. Maybe we can drop a link to that one.
I'll drop the link.
It's just, it's such a great video, and it does such a better job of answering that question than I can do in like 15 seconds. So basically, if you want to apply to YC, you should definitely watch Dalton's video, because it goes into that and a lot more related questions in a lot of great detail.
I'm going to drop that in the chat right now. And then Rogel asked about, if you're building a marketplace, how do you make sure that the buyers and sellers on your marketplace don't trade their goods outside of the marketplace, which I think is a really interesting one.
It is a really interesting one. And this is a super common situation. Like a really good example of this is a YC company called HomeJoy, which built a marketplace to help you hire house cleaners. So if you want to hire somebody to like clean your apartment, you could go to HomeJoy and they'd have like a whole bunch of house cleaners, and you could like book one and they'll come and they'll clean your house. But the issue is, like, once you've done that once, you kind of want the same person to clean your house the next time, because like they already know your house and you've given them instructions and you trust them and they did a good job. So you kind of don't want to go back to HomeJoy and get a random person who may not do a good job. You have to explain everything to all over again. You really want to get the same person. And so there's a lot of natural pull in that marketplace towards doing off marketplace transactions, where when the house cleaner's in your home, you get their phone number, and you just like, the next time you want your house cleaned, you send them a text message and like, hey, want to come back and clean my house again? This phenomenon is sometimes called marketplace leakage. And yeah, it's a problem for certain kinds of marketplaces. And I think like my high order bit is, if this is a problem for you, it's probably going to be hard to fight, like HomeJoy sort of didn't work as a company in part because of this problem, in part because it's really hard to solve. And so ideally, you want to sort of choose a marketplace and choose a structure for your business where the incentives to go off marketplace don't exist or aren't very strong. And companies like Uber and Instacart and DoorDash are a great example of marketplaces that don't have this problem for fundamental reasons, where they don't need to put a lot of effort into trying to solve it. That said, if you do want to try to solve it, there are definitely some good ideas. One is to just add a bunch of friction to make it harder for people to go off marketplace. And a great example of this is Airbnb. So on Airbnb, you can see all the different places that you can rent to stay in. But if you notice, on Airbnb, they don't show you the exact location of the apartments. They show you an approximate location. So you know within a few blocks where this place might be, so you can decide if you want to rent it, but not enough information that you can like find the actual place and look them up and try to find the contact information of the owner and go around it. Also on Airbnb, they have actually a lot of sort of security measures in place to try to prevent off-market transactions. So for example, if you're thinking about staying at a place, you can send a message to a host and ask a question like, I don't know, how good is your Wi-Fi? But if you send the host a question and that's like, what's your address or what's your email address, Airbnb actually has a bunch of security measures in place to stop that email before it ever gets to the host. And so, yeah, you can think about adopting measures like that.
I'm skipping around because we only have a little bit of time, but I really like this one. Does YC have the same expectations for developing markets like Africa? Or I would expand this to say, like, there are certain industries that are really well developed in markets like the US, but not in other countries. How do you evaluate those applications that come into YC?
Yeah, that is a really good question. So YC funds a lot of companies in developing markets now, Africa, Southeast Asia, Latin America, all over the world. Amazingly, I would say that for the most part, we actually do have sort of the same expectations. It turns out that, like, for the most part, YC's advice and the way that we think about startups is more similar than different anywhere in the world. And like the same basic principles of, are you solving a clear problem for something? Are you making something people want? Are you able to get users to use your product? Do they like the product? Do they stay and continue to use the product? Do they pay for the product? Like, work basically everywhere in the world. And so for the most part, even though we at YC are definitely not experts in any particular emerging market, we evaluate companies pretty much the same way. We like to talk to the founders and understand their market through their eyes. We want to know whether you really understand the market that you're in and really understand the customers and the customer need. That's true everywhere.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't know if we could take maybe one more. We can go with this one that's really highly upvoted. At an early stage. Oh no, do you have one you like better? Yeah. Go for it.
Can do one. Okay. So Aldo asked a question: what is the most counterintuitive thing about growth in consumer apps? So yeah, the most counterintuitive thing about growth in consumer apps, and I would say for early stage consumer apps, is typically the thing to optimize for in early stage consumer apps is a small number of highly engaged users. That is the thing that most predicts success. And so sometimes founders instead try to just get as many users as possible, and they get a lot of users that just aren't very engaged and don't use the product very much. For consumer apps, particularly consumer social apps, you're better off optimizing for a small number of highly engaged users and then expanding outwards. If you look at most of the great social products like Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, they all started with a small number of highly engaged users.
Awesome. Great note to end on. Great questions from the Q&A. Thank you again to all the founders who participated in office hours. And of course, thank you, Jared, for giving us an hour of your time every week during the build sprint to share your advice. And I'll make one final plug for the Startup School Forum. We've seen the chat get really engaged when founders are coming up and asking basically to crowdsource ideas. And so a plug to use the forum to do that. You can really leverage the other founders in the community when you're crowdsourcing ideas and advice. So thank you again, everyone. We will see you next week for the final office hours of the build sprint, and good luck, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody.